Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. And in this video we are going to install this dual fuel carburetor onto this new generator. So I'm going to be installing it on this new AI Power 4500 watt generator. The frame and the design is maybe similar to others out there. So without further ado, let's get started. First things first, let's go ahead and shut off the fuel. Next, let's undo the airbox assembly. Remove the nuts using a 10mm socket. This particular airbox has a screw in the back end here. I already took that out just for simplicity purposes. Remove the airbox, disconnect the hoses on the side. And mind that gasket that was here already. Now once I got the airbox removed, pay attention to this gasket here. Yours probably have one too. This generator is new, so I'm just going to go ahead and reuse this gasket. And there's another one behind the carburetor back in here, which I'll probably reuse anyways also, since it is new. But otherwise, the new dual fuel carburetor comes with new gaskets. Let's go ahead and disconnect this fuel line. And if yours has had gasoline in it, make sure you have something below here to pour the gasoline in, but mine is empty. We're going to pull out this carburetor a little bit so that we can take off this choke lever. And keep the carburetor pulled out a little bit so you can disconnect this linkage up here. It's very difficult to do it while the carburetor is all the way in, so pull it out a little bit. Disconnect the linkage up here and the spring. So now that I got the linkage and spring off, let's go ahead and pull this carburetor out. Set it aside. You can see there's another gasket right here. I'm just going to go ahead and leave this one in place because this generator is new, so I don't need to replace it. But if yours is old and brittle, go ahead and put the new gasket in there, making sure you line it up the same way it is here. Okay, so here's the new dual fuel carburetor. And it matches up nicely to the original carburetor here. And you can see I already got a fuel line hose on here because I had already installed this, but I'm redoing the video to show more of how to put it all together. So this hose is not included. I already added this, and it's pretty tough to take off. And this one's a little different. It has the mixing screw for the air fuel mixture. And this one also does come with a shutoff, a fuel drain, that goes on the bottom of this bowl for the carburetor. It's got a little port underneath the bottom here, and if you open it up, it'll allow the gasoline to drain out of the bottom of this bowl of the carburetor. But what I want to show you, at least on this particular carburetor and my frame, is one of the key factors here is I'm going to need to remove these screws in order, off that bracket there, in order to separate this diaphragm for the unit in order to install it. So as you can see now, I have this separated. And this will help it or make it easier to manipulate this and get it in there without doing any alterations to the framework or the box or the hoses. So as you can see, if I didn't take this off this bracket here, there's no way this would fit inside there. But with the screws taken off this bracket, we can manipulate this and get this carburetor on. Now as you can see, with a little bit of manipulation, I was able to get this in here without having to do any alterations. Just make sure you keep the carburetor out so you can attach your linkage and the spring back in before you push this all the way back in. Once you get it back in, what we're going to do then is go in behind here and reattach these screws. Okay, now this back screw over here can be a little bit tricky to get in, but just take your time and work on it. Now that we got that screw down and nice and tight, let's move on to the next step. Now the carburetor came with a choke lever, but this is identical to the one that's there, and I went ahead and just installed the original choke lever because it fit perfectly. And this particular carburetor looks like it has 3 positions. This one is in full closed or choke position, and then a middle, maybe like halfway open, and then full. Now since my generator is new, I'm just going to go ahead and replace the gasket And if yours is worn, go ahead and replace it with a new one that you got. While we're here, we might as well go ahead and connect the fuel line. And I'm going to keep mine on off because I'm going to try not to use any more gasoline in it at all. I used it just for testing it out. Okay, I got the air box back on, so don't forget to put the screws on here. Go ahead and put your filter and whatever material on your cover back on, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, so we got the air box back in place. We got our vacuum hoses put back on the way they were. As you can see, I got a little bit of clearance here from my fuel hose. Now this particular carburetor has a 3/8 barb fitting on it, which I think is the correct size. So what I have is a standard propane regulator, and I went ahead and cut the fitting off the end of it. I just got this at Home Depot and put a 5/16 pass-through barb fitting on it. So I made my connection at the fittings there with some worm clamps, connected it to the fuel line hose. This is probably about 3.5, 4 feet. And let's see if this thing works. Okay, so here we are. We are ready to go. So basically we have a gasoline generator. We have a dual fuel carburetor on it, which technically now makes it a tri-fuel generator, but I don't have natural gas, so I wouldn't be able to test it out personally. But I don't believe I'm going to have to make any adjustments to this air mixture screw. I think it's going to run just fine. Fuel is off. Let's turn on the propane. Let's purge. I got my choke in the run position. It is in on. Let's see how she does. Well, I think that worked out pretty good. So if any guys are interested in maybe installing a dual fuel carburetor in your generator, I highly recommend this one. As always, stay cool out there. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching.